What's up, everybody, and welcome to Catholic Girl on the Radio. I'm Rita Sekali, and this is the show or the Bible study that takes you to the early church fathers or writings and it brings them to you in modern day English. My friends, today we are going to go through the Gospel of St. Matthew. This is Matthew 11, chapter 11, verses 20 to 24. And the Gospel of St. Matthew tells us, Jesus began to approach the towns where most of his mighty deeds had been done, since they had not repented. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! Woe to you, Chorazin! For the mighty has done deeds in your midst that had been done in Tyre and Tyre. They would have long ago have repented in sackcloth and ashes, but I tell you, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon on the day of judgment than for you. And as for you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? You will go down to the nether world. For if the mighty deeds done in your midst had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I tell you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom on the day of judgment than for you. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise be to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Now, if you want to give me a second there with you guys before we say our prayers, I am trying to get our stuff live and going in the other places as well. Oh, it's not letting me. Okay. It looks like it doesn't want to do it. All right. Well, we're on live here anyways, so we're going to continue. And so we're going to begin our commentary today from St. John Chrysostom. And St. John says, let us also listen to these teachings. For Christ did not speak to unbelievers, but, all right, there we are, a little bit better. Let us also listen to these teachings, for Christ didn't speak only to unbelievers, but to us as well, warning that if we do not welcome the stranger who comes to us, we face a punishment even worse than that of Sodom. This is clear in his commandments to shake off the dust from your feet when hospitality is refused. And this commandment is entirely appropriate. When the people of Sodom sinned greatly, yes, they did, but they lived before the law was given, before grace was revealed. But we, after all the cares God has shown us, what excuse can we possibly give for showing such inhospitality? When we close not only our doors, but our ears to those in need, what mercy do we expect? I cannot tell you how much I absolutely adore St. John. And this is part of the reason why I think he's just so incredibly great. Because when we look at St. John, we see something that in our modern world is what we need. We don't just need, in our very materialistic world, or where things are very accessible in a very easy way to a lot of different people, I think what's missing is an open ear to those who are in need. And we don't always offer that. We are so consumed in our world, in my problems, that when other people's problems arise, we're not there to help them. We actually want to shut them off. And our response is typically, you do you, but how good is that? When people feel isolated and they feel lost and they feel like there isn't anyone to truly love them. And it's not just the poor we're rejected. We are rejecting the apostles themselves. So that's the true reason we turn away the poor. Because we've already turned away the apostles. I had to pause while reading that sentence to process it. Because what an incredible thing to say. You guys have to see it. Look at this. For that's the true reason we turn away the poor. Because we have turned away the apostles. Can you imagine that? Part of the reason why we don't welcome the poor is because our hearts are so close to the messengers of God that he is we just reject them when we reject him when we reject them. Why? Because why is St. John telling us that? Because in the last few episode or the last few chapters of the gospel that we've been through with St. John, we see this exact thing happening over and over again. What did Jesus say? He says, look, I'm sending you without nothing. Take nothing with you. And who in our world has nothing but the poor? Those who are homeless. Those who really have absolutely nothing. They're like the apostles, but we reject them so much because we reject the apostles. When Paul's words are read aloud and you don't pay attention, when John preaches and you don't listen, how can you expect to welcome the poor when you won't even receive the apostles? Wow, man, mind-blowing. Whew. This, you guys, is something that is just, it's so humbling. Because if the word of God is spoken and there's an opportunity for me to live it out today and I don't pay attention, how do I expect to welcome the poor if I can't even receive the words of the apostles? You know, imagine having a guest that's sleeping over and you say nothing to them and you hear nothing of their words. You just have them sit there. They do whatever they want. They're minding their business. You're minding your own business. Is that what hospitality looks like? Absolutely not. We don't do this to people we love. So what is it then? When the apostles come into our homes, when you have the Bible and the Bible is sitting there, and that's how you interact with these people. That's how you interact with the Word of God. And here's John with his gospel coming in to tell you certain things. Here's Matthew or Paul or Peter or whichever book in the Bible. And he's coming and he's telling you these things. You can choose not to listen, or you could actually choose to make a difference in your life and welcome them in. And when you allow for that guest, which is the Bible that's sitting on your coffee table, to speak, and you allow your heart to be attentive, that's when you begin to see the work of God in your life. And that's when you welcome the apostles, not just by saying, I'm a Christian, and not behaving like a Christian would. So both our homes may be open to the poor and our ears open to the world. We must cleanse our souls from the filth that clogs them. Just as the physical dirt blocks out ears, so too do worldly distractions. Lustful songs, gossip, debt, greed, and financial schemes. Defend the ear of the soul. Okay, I want to back up because this is so important. And it's so important to me because St. John was actually writing this in the early, in the 400s. What is he saying? Look, lustful songs? What kind of lustful songs were they listening to back then? Because compared to what we listen to today, compared to the things that are imprinted in my mind since I was a kid, that I heard mindlessly without even knowing, compared to those songs, I don't know if they had anything this lustful or provocative. Of course, these ideas live in my mind. Of course. Because there's physical dirt that is blocking out my ear. There's spiritual dirt that's blocking out the ear of my soul. What else? Gossip, right? We look at different things that are being said online, and goodness, people are so incredibly brutal. We are so incredibly brutal to one another and making judgments, let alone online, where we can just say something and signal virtue that, oh, I'm better than this, instead of really cleansing, again, our souls from the filth that clogs them. What else does he talk about? He talks about debt. Oh my gosh, most of us are in financial debt. Greed, financial schemes. No, I think financial education is actually really, really important. I think it's very imperative. If you know anything about me, in my personal life, you'll know that I actually teach business. That is one of the jobs that I have. I'm a professor of business at the university. So for me, it actually matters. These issues, these topics are interesting, they're fun. But I think financial education is super important. I think figuring out how to be entrepreneurs and business owners and all that stuff to me is so crucial, and it's so much fun, and it's just so interesting. It's such a complex but beautiful topic. But we sometimes tend to put these things opposite of one another. Well, if God is giving you a mind, use it so that you're not stuck in that. If not, if God is giving you a mind, there's no if there, right? But God is giving you a mind and talent. Go use them. Go seek out information. Go build your companies. Go create a financially stable life with Christ, right? You're not dependent on that financial stability for your value, but rather for you to actually be able to build a sustainable life in this world and harvest the things that you need to harvest and plant the things that you need to plant. So I think these are important. So debt is also greed, financial schemes. And I want to say, my goodness, the intentions are so important. We've talked about this in other episodes with the early church fathers, but the intentions of our hearts can determine how God is looking at us. Two people, and I want to say it's either Augustine or, well, it's either Augustine, St. John, or Ambrose is probably what it sounds like, but they had this statement where two people can be doing the same exact thing, but their reward from God is going to be different because their intentions are completely different. So someone may be helping the poor not because they actually care, but because they want to be seen as important, or maybe they want to feed their ego that I am better and I'm more righteous. And others may be helping the poor because, as St. John is saying, they want to welcome the apostles. While two people are doing the same thing, and the person receiving that benefit is receiving that benefit and is being blessed either way because their intention is pure and their intention is to receive the graces from God that are being bestowed on by someone else, this doesn't change the fact that the intentions of the people themselves are different. And this is where we have greed and financial schemes. So we really, really crucially need to defend the ear of the soul. Now, he says, these things don't just block us from hearing God's voice, they pollute us. My gosh, I really feel like he's sitting here talking to us today. Look at social media today. For sure, I'm not saying all of it is bad. Clearly, look, I'm here with you and I'm making this video, this podcast, and I absolutely love it because God has been using this stuff to make my world so much better. But we have to be selective as to what we allow ourselves to listen to and to see. Think about it as like a diet. If you want to persevere in your health and you want to have a sustainable, healthy immune system or body or whatever you want to say, you create a diet that is sustainable. You also avoid certain foods, you change your habits. This is the same thing here. Why are we selective about the organic or not organic food that we eat, but we're not selective about the soul that we have within us? Now, he says, what the Assyrian commander once threatened says, you will eat your own filth and drink your own urine. That's Isaiah 36:12. It is not just a metaphor here. It is what these people do to you spiritually and even worse. My goodness, yes, this is so true. It's so true. These filthy songs and stories are more revolting than that. And what's worse is instead of being disgusted, you laugh at them. Then you should be recoiling when you should be recoiling in horror. My gosh, it's like he's sitting here right with us today. Do you hear what he's saying? The filthy songs, the filthy songs and stories are more revolting than drinking your filth or eating your own filth and drinking your own urine. That's what he's telling us. Why? Because they pollute our souls. They really, really, really do. And we don't even notice it. We do not notice it. So instead of being disgusted at the things that we're watching, we let it slide. We say, no, it's okay. This is fine. We laugh at them. We enjoy this kind of comedy or whatever. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy comedy. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy a good movie. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy a good series. But we really have to be selective as to what we're allowing ourselves to do. Are we spiritually eating our own filth and drinking our own urine? That is wow. And if you think these things aren't disgusting, then go and imitate them. Go to the theater, act out what you're laughing at. No, you wouldn't dare. Then why do you honor it with your applause and attention? Even pagan law considers these things shameful, yet you welcome them into your cities like honored ambassadors or military generals, gathering everyone to receive the filth poured into their ears. Oof. And it's become so decentralized with everything. It really has become so decentralized with everything because now that filth is right in front of us on social media. But think about it. The things that you're watching on social media, the things that you're interacting with, the things that you are liking in secret, things that you don't want people to know, would you go out and imitate them? Would you go out and do exactly what they are doing? Because for the most part, you probably wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. And so why allow yourself to do that, to even watch that or entertain that? And these are incredible reminders to all of us because we all have, not to the extent, so as we grow spiritually, it may not be at the extent of where it was before, nor would it be scandalous or anything like that if you're watching something as you're going with God. But there are certain things that carry certain messages that you're like, maybe I shouldn't. Earlier today, actually, I was watching a sitcom, and the sitcom isn't a bad sitcom. It's actually really, really funny, but I'm not going to tell you the name. But it's a funny sitcom. It used to be one of my favorite ones to watch. And then I started paying closer and closer attention to what they're actually saying. And then there are certain episodes where I completely have to skip over, not because of anything inappropriate, like any inappropriate physical behaviors or even inappropriate words, but inappropriate concepts that they're sharing. And I'm like, this isn't what I want. Where there's, at one point, there was someone calling God she, or even, so things like that, like little things that are like, they're seeped in and like, this isn't what I want to watch. This is funny, but this isn't. The show is funny, but this isn't for me. Maybe, and it's not representative of my God. And unfortunately, it does feel like a lot of times there aren't any other good options. So maybe what we can do together, if you're listening or watching to any of this, maybe what we can do together is actually compile a list of wholesome shows. I know there are probably some out there, but it's hard. It's hard to have like incredible productions that are wholesome. But here's St. John addressing the same issues. So he says, if your own servant says something obscene in your home, you'd beat him. If your child or your spouse spoke like this, you'd be offended. But when the lowlives shout vulgarities on stage, you laugh and cheer. What insanity is this? You might say, but I never speak that way. What of it? If you laugh when others do, and if you rush to hear such things, aren't you just as guilty? If someone blasphemies, do you not recoil and plug your ears? Why? Because you don't blaspheme. So do the same when you hear filthy language. If you truly detest it, you won't tolerate even hearing it. Now, I watch these memes on, like, these reels online that sometimes show up, and the pivotal word that they use is the swear word. And that's what makes it so funny. And then I really have to think, is this worth it? Is it really? Couldn't you have said that same statement and it would have been as funny without it? Wouldn't that have been the case? And again, I'm not condemning. I've said so many stupid things in my life. I've said so many useless things, but our God is, His mercy is great. And as we grow in the spiritual maturity, this is what St. John is urging us to do, to grow in virtue. Oh, my bad. Let's go back. Okay, so how can you grow in virtue when your soul is constantly being soaked with such filth? How can you strive for chastity when your ears are full of lewdness and crude jokes? For a soul that stays away from all that, chastity is already difficult. How much more for someone steeped in it day to day? And we really wonder why chastity is such a problem today. Why, compared to other generations, it's a lot more promiscuous and there's a lot more fight against chastity. But this is it. Look, we have the answer. We've had the answer since the early 400s and even before that. But St. John's writings, what a blessing. He says, don't you know that we humans already incline towards sin? Why do we make it worse by turning sin into entertainment and habit? When will we break free of this fire? Have you not heard Paul say, rejoice in the Lord, Philippians 4:4, not in the devil? When you hear Paul clearly, when will you recognize your sin? You've become drunk, not with wine, but with the constant stream of shameless entertainment. My gosh, this is so true. That doom scroll on Instagram. I'm guilty of that doom scroll on Instagram, whether Instagram or TikTok or whatever you want to call them. My goodness. When will you stop is what he's asking. You've become drunk, not on wine, but with this constant stream of shameless entertainment. Even the fact that you've come to the church isn't especially admirable, though perhaps it is remarkable, given how you've come. You come here lazily, just to erase your conscience, but you rush to the theater eagerly, with urgency and enthusiasm. And what do you bring from there? All the garbage poured into you, through the songs, the jokes, the preserved speech. You bring it home, not only to your house, but also to your very mind. My gosh, this is so good, and it's so important because look at it, you guys. We do go to church lazily. And a lot of times we go to appease that conscience that we have so that we say, it's okay, I will live out this week and it should be fine. But, and this is the same, goes true, I think I said that in yesterday's episode as well. You rush to the theater with eager urgency and enthusiasm. And what do you bring from there? All the garbage. But here's the thing. If a poor person comes to you, or if you want to donate something to the church, you donate, let's say you want to donate a certain amount of money. You don't donate a certain amount of money. It bothers you, or you feel like, oh, this is a lot. Maybe you donate $250 and you're like, this is a lot. But then if someone asks you if you wanted to go to your favorite singer's concert, you readily buy that. Even not your favorite singer's concert, you readily buy that. And you don't feel anything about it. Why is that the case? Why is that the case? But here again, what he says, okay, it's coming to your mind. You're not just bringing it home where you could set it away. It's actually entering your mind. Meanwhile, you turn away from things that deserve reverence, and you embrace what you ought to be loathed. What ought to be loathed. People come back from visiting tombs to wash themselves, but returning from the theater, no one weeps or mourns. And yet a corpse doesn't defile you. Sin does. And sin causes a pain that not even 1,000 washing can remove. Only tears and confession can cleanse it. At least he gives us the solution, right? But we don't realize how badly stained we are. I want to say, I've said it's so true so many times in this episode, but yes, I have no real measurement of how badly stained even a single, like the smallest sin, can leave on my heart and on my soul. And we commit so many sins without knowledge. You know, the Melchite liturgy or the Greek Orthodox liturgy, which is the same one, is written by St. John Chrysostom. And I can see the nuances here, because in one of the things we say, forgive us the trespasses that we made with or without knowledge. Because we truly, truly do not realize how badly stained we are. We don't. We fear that we should, let's do that. We fear what we shouldn't fear. Don't fear what we should. Look at the applause, the chaos, the demonic excitement. Look at the young men growing their hair, trying to look and act like women in dress, in gesture, and in voice. Look at the old men shaving their heads, grinding their loins, preparing themselves to be mocked and beaten on stage. Look at the women, their heads uncovered, shamelessly speaking to large crowds, spreading their boldness and impurity into everyone's soul. Their only claim is to destroy chastity, to defile our very nature, to fulfill the lust of the devil. Their words are foul, their actions fouler still. Their hairstyles, their walk, their clothes, their posture, their eyes, their music, their performance, all of it is pure corruption. So I ask you, when will you ever become sober again? The devil has prepared a drunkenness for you far worse than wine. He offers you a cup after cup of lust and impurity. There are adulteries, secret affairs, women prostituting themselves, men selling their bodies, boys being corrupted. Everything is saturated with wickedness and sorcery and shame. If only he were here to see today. Actually, he is, right? Because we don't die. We pass into eternal life, and we are alive with Christ, and he sees. And how incredible is our God that even at that moment, he was still, he was writing for today. He allowed St. John to write for today, knowing what will come later. It's so, all of it, it's the same. It's the same. It hasn't changed. Those who sit and watch these things shouldn't be laughing. They should be weeping and groaning. So what are we supposed to shut down the theaters? Someone might ask. But the world is already upside down because of it. Where do men learn to break marriages, seduce women, and sneak into homes? From stage, from social media, right? Where do husbands and wife become repulsive to each other? From what's presented in the theater, from hubs where inappropriate things are being watched. Most adultery is born there. So don't blame me for turning the world upside down. The responsibility lies with the theater goers. They brought tyranny into their homes. You may say, but it's allowed by law. But so is the conquering of cities. And what's more lawless than invading someone's home, corrupting the youth, and destroying marriages? Again, this is very much applying for today. Now, I would argue that these in particular are so much more about maybe pornography than it is other things as well. But what started with St. John as that, or in the early church as that, now is at every hand. You just take out your cell phone and there you are in the filth, in the middle of that filth. And I'm not sitting here with righteousness. All I can think of is, how am I using social media? What am I watching? What am I listening to? When I do go and perform on stages, how does that look like? Does it reflect that I belong to Christ, or does it not? And that's what's going on in my mind as I'm reading this. What, oh Lord, am I accountable for in this sermon that St. John is speaking to me to? Like, what is it? Because I am sure there are things I'm accountable for. So I really, really have to stop and ask Jesus, to stop and ask the Lord, what am I accountable for that I could give you so that you could heal, so that you could work through this? Because this stuff that we are reading today, I am not telling you to act with urgency that is that's panic. That's like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this. I have to shut. This is not how we react. We discern and we look at what's good and what's there and what's bad. So I would say, look at what St. John, and I don't know if this is a good example, but a lot of our sages now, we have priests, for example, that are DJing these incredibly beautiful, quote unquote, parties that using the same methodology of the world to bring in all those people, all those youth to the world, to the church. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not. The mass continues to be the same. The liturgy continues to be the same. And it's not influenced by that stuff. But people are going to the theaters. So let's bring the theaters to Christ. People are going to social media. So let's bring social media to Christ. And let's change in that sense. Let's take him with us wherever we go. And so you ask, what adulterers was made one by watching a play? That is a very good question, because we ask the same thing, right? Who was made a sinner by doing X, Y, and Z? By watching people, I don't know, do something inappropriate. It could, whatever it is, right? Do a trend that that is not very wholesome. Okay, who became an adulterer by that? That's what we ask. Or if they're watching pornography, then how did they become adulterers by watching pornography? They didn't do anything. They weren't the one in the act. But then he says, I ask, who wasn't? The question is not who was made a sinner by watching pornography. The question is, who wasn't made an adulterer by watching pornography? If I had the freedom, I could list by name the many husbands pulled away from their wives by actresses, many even taken directly from their marriage bed. My goodness, and today, what do we have? We have pornography that enters in the very bedroom itself. They don't even have to be pulled away from the marriage bed. You ask, again, what adulterer was made? That we just read that one. You ask, are we to abolish the law? No, we are abolishing lawlessness if we remove these spectacles. These entertainments being destructions to cities. They fuel riots, as those that are hired to shout and cheer in the theaters are the very people who incite public disorders. Young men, idle, and raised in these evil, become more dangerous than wild animals. We have an entire society that is struggling with marriage and struggling to find the right partner, the right spouse. Why? Because of this. And yes, it happens to both men and women, but let's talk more in a sense about men's ability to be there, present in that moment. As a result of pornography, or as a result of texting or quote unquote sexting girls or things like that from their phones. These are good men, quote unquote good men, right? We're all sinners. These are good men that are attending church. And as he said earlier, maybe to erase our conscience. And the women are also reciprocating that. So it goes both ways. So if they're texting each other, if they're interacting with each other, they don't have to be in St. John's time. It was the actresses. It was those who were prostituting themselves. Right now, it doesn't have to be. We look at certain text messages between people, and it's all about physically being together and what they would do to one another physically, right? And we have an entire generation that is struggling with marriage as a result of this entering into their mind, this filth that surrounds them. And so there has to be something that changes. There really has to be something that changes. So he says, so tell me, who's destroying our cities? Is it me, who warns against these things? Or is it you, who support and promote them? You're ruining souls, and I'm trying to save them. Let's stare down the theater, you say? I wish we could. Or better yet, if you could simply stop going, it would collapse on its own. If you would simply stop watching pornography, it would collapse on its own. That would be an even greater victory than tearing it down. At the very least, imitate the pagans who have no part or take no part in such spectacles. What excuse will you have? We who are citizens of heaven, part of the angelic choirs, acting worse than the pagans. This to me is such an important reminder. The way he phrased that, apart from everything else that he's saying, just the way he phrased that, we are citizens of heaven, part of angelic choir, acting worse than the pagans. Do you remember that you are a citizen of heaven? Right? I love traveling with the American passport. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. I love traveling to begin with, but traveling with the American passport gives you so much power to enter into different places. Because why? Because you are a representative of that country. And so let's say I, with my American passport, go into a country and cause disturbance. Who am I representing? Am I just representing myself? No, I'm actually representing the country I'm from. This is the same thing in heaven. You were baptized into Christ. It means that you became a citizen of heaven. And as a citizen with that passport, there are certain responsibilities that you have. There are certain things that are expected of you. With the grace of God, they could be done, not without Him. And you represent Christ, and you have to remember that your nationality is that of heaven. That's what we constantly have to keep in mind. That passport that gets you to so many different countries, this passport, the heaven passport, gets you into heaven. You are going here from one place to another, getting your stamps of everyday life. But the truth is, you belong there, and we have to constantly remember that. Because you are an ambassador of Christ. And so as you may be sitting there and you're watching something inappropriate, or maybe you're having a conversation you shouldn't be having, as that is happening, remember you are called for more. Remember that you are part of the angelic choirs. There are angels out there that you're associated with. There are so many wholesome pleasures available to us. If you want beauty and joy, go walk beside a river, explore gardens, listen to nature, visit the tomb of the martyrs. You'll find health for your body and blessing for your soul with no guilt or regret afterwards. You want to enjoy something fun? Because what do they say? Oh, I'm just doing this for fun. Even the doom scrolling on Instagram, I'm just doing it because I got nothing. You want something that fulfills you? You feel hungry? Look at what God has created. And also, you want real food for your soul? Consume the gospel. There are so many wholesome pleasures available to us. This is what he said. He says, do you have wife and children? What joy could be greater than that? Do you have a home and friends? These are true sources of delight. Not only are they pure, they bring lasting benefits. What is more precious than children? What is more beautiful than a chaste wife? Even the barbarians once mocked the Romans, saying they must have invented these entertainment because they don't have wives and children. Wow, okay. They understand that nothing brings greater joy than family if you live with integrity. These are words that are so needed for today's world. They're just so needed. Honestly, I have so much to say, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to begin because what he's saying is far more important than anything I could ever add. But do you have, what's more precious than children? What's more beautiful than a chaste wife? Try to get that statement from a man today. Vice versa too, right? Women may want someone with experience or whatever other things they want. But no, you want real beauty? Go home. Go home and love your family. That's where you get real beauty. He says, but some people go to the theater, but some people go to the theater and they are unharmed, you may say. First, simply wasting your time is a form of harm. Wow, he's getting straight to the point. Achievers, I love that. I love achievers. Okay, but some people go to the theater and they're unharmed, you may say. First, simply wasting your time is a form of harm. And even if you aren't harmed, others are. Your presence encourages it. The fortune tellers, the prostitutes, the actors, all depend on your applause. If there were no audience, they would cease. So you share responsibility in their sin. My gosh. Okay. All right, I got to stop there. How many times have we shared responsibility for sins? How many sins do I have to account for before God and say, Lord, purify my heart and my soul and my mind from anything that I have heard that I shouldn't have heard, anything that I saw that I shouldn't have seen. And a lot of times, at least in my case, praise be to God, it wasn't necessarily intentional. You're watching a show and you have to skip through a billion scenes because you don't want to see the rest. Things just show up in our world. And so we really have to guard our eyes. But how much more do I have to present to God and say, Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I partook in any of these sins. I'm sorry for the things that I've corrupted. And sometimes it's even things that feed the pride. Like there are certain songs, for example, that you hear and it's all about me, 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 me. They're not necessarily saying something sexual. They're not necessarily saying something evil. But just merely hearing that song over and over and over and over again, it seeps in you like as if you're like a sponge and you're taking that in. All right. So, but someone, yes, we already read that part. Anything else? Okay. Even if you remain perfectly pure, which is impossible, you would still bear guilt for their downfall. And if you really were chaste, how much more chaste would you be if you avoided these shows altogether? Let us not defend the indefensible. There's only one excuse that God will accept: to flee from the Babylonian furnace, to escape the Egyptian seductress, even if it meant running away naked like Joseph. Genesis 39:12. Only then will we enjoy the peace and clean conscience, will live chastely in this life, and inherit the eternal blessing to come by the grace and love of our Lord Jesus Christ, to whom be the glory and power forever. All right, should we go into St. Jerome? I feel like I want a different perspective, but I think we're going to stop with St. John, because what he said was extremely powerful, and I think we should let it sink in. All right, my friends, that is it for today. Thank you for joining this Bible study. If you have any questions, please let me know at The Word with Rita. And I'm really enjoying learning with all of you. I'm really enjoying reacting to their text because it is generally the first time I'm reading it as well. But thank you for being here with me. Please share and like and subscribe if you feel called to, if you like what you see. And I will be with you in the next video. Bye for now.